Greetings, Otaku Faithful. Thank you for joining me again this week. Once again, it's Larry Williams, OAW Commander-in-Chief, and I'm here to bring you yet again another ThunderCats episode review right here on Otaku Assemble! Weekly, as always, I'm here to bring you the latest in this week's ThunderCats episode review. So, first and foremost, I have to say that I was hugely surprised by this week's ThunderCats episode. As many of you all know, in last week's video I stated that I was considering dropping the series, which I am still considering dropping the series. Like I said, unless the series starts making some major improvements, I would drop it. And especially this week, I stated that if the ThunderCats episode was not up to snuff, then I just wasn't going to review it. But they surprised me. They actually produced a pretty good episode this week. So this is episode 17, entitled Native Son, and it is the Tigra origin story, which, like I said, I did not see that coming. That was completely unexpected. Okay, so in this week's episode, Lion-O and Tigra are tracking through the mountains, and they are searching for what I would assume is the third stone. But once again, I'm going to talk about the placement of this episode later on in this review, because it's very sketchy. So anywho, back to the episode. Lion-O and Tigra, they're tracking through the mountains, and they come across the Tigra clan. And we discover that Tigra was in fact the heir to the Tigra clan. Tigra meets his father, Javon, and the other members of the clan. And throughout the episode, Tigra learns more about what happened, why he was, why his father gave him up. We see, how King Claudius and his wife, how they got Tigra, and Tigra's early upbringing, and how he was supposed to be the prince. Apparently, Claudius and his wife had trouble producing a cub, and so when they found Tigra, they took advantage of it and they took him in as their own until Lion-O was born. And then, of course, Lion-O, being their son, being a lion, he would assume the throne. So, he's the rightful prince. And so we kind of saw how that whole thing came about. We also learned that Lion-O's mother died in childbirth with him, which we didn't know that. And so later on in the episode, we discovered that what happened with Tigra, his father, and Tigra being sent off was that the Tigra clan, as we saw in episode 7, Legacy, the Tigra clan were, that was a group of the cat race who were loyal to Mum-Ra. And so when the rebellion happened, they remained loyal to Mum-Ra. And so when the lions assumed power in Thundera, they cast the tigers out. So the tigers were exiled to the mountains, and after a couple of generations, they were struck by a devastating sickness, a devastating illness. And so Javon, being the head of the Tigra clan, he asked the ancient spirits for help. And so they had to make a deal. In exchange for relieving the Tigra clan of the illness, Javon would have to sacrifice Tigra, because they knew that Tigra would grow up to become the leader of the clan, and that he would turn against the spirits. He would turn against them, and by extension also turn against Mum-Ra. And so instead, Javon decided to send Tigra off to Thundera. And of course, after we learn about this, Lion-O and Tigra decide to help the Tigra clan out. And the conclusion, I will say this, the conclusion in which the curse was actually broken. Oh, I forgot to mention that. Yeah, okay, this is what happened. When Javon broke the deal, when he allowed Tigra to live, ancient spirits, they reneged. And so not only did they allow the illness to strike the Tigra clan again, but those who were left behind were cursed by the spirits. In a way to where they kind of became undead in a way. You know, they're not living, but they're not dead. They're almost, it's almost as if they're kind of like in this perpetual limbo. You know, they're forced to live out the rest of their days with this curse. They're not able to move on. And then of course, you know, Tigra facing this and forgiving his father for what he did, that's what relieved the curse. Now, before I jump into the placement of this episode, actually, let me just break down and give you all my thoughts on the episode. First off, I want to address the manner in which the curse was broken. Apparently, the curse was brought on by pride. Javon could not allow himself to sacrifice his son, so his pride is what brought the curse on. And it was Tigra being able to forgive his father, Tigra putting his pride aside, was what broke the curse. Let me just say that that's a very steep slope to climb, as far as, you know, that writing. Like I said, I'll buy it, I'll bite. But that's very good. Under normal circumstances, I wouldn't buy that. And the reason for that being is because how could Tigra break the curse unless he killed himself or unless he got killed? Because that was part of the deal, you know. So Tigra being able to forgive his father, breaking the curse, in all honesty, that doesn't hold up. That doesn't make any sense. Because, once again, the whole deal was the spirits would relieve the illness if Javon killed Tigra. Javon didn't kill Tigra, so they brought back the illness, and then they cursed Javon and the other heads of the Tigra clan. So how is it that Tigra forgiving Javon is going to relieve them of that curse? Especially when Tigra wasn't cursed himself. See what I mean? That, like I said, I'll buy it because I know where they were going with that. But logistically speaking, that doesn't make any fucking sense. So, I don't know. I get where they were going, but it doesn't make any sense. And then my second biggest issue with this week's episode was the placement of this episode. Because this episode focuses entirely on Lionel and Tigra, it features them almost exclusively it does. As far as the rest of the team is concerned, it features them exclusively. We don't see any of the other team in this episode. And for all intent and purpose, Tigra's the main character in this episode, which I really did like. You all will remember in last week's review, I talked about how we, with the exception of Lionel and Panthro, we didn't get any episodes that feature the other members exclusively. And so I like that Tigra was at the forefront of this episode. But once again, I have to question this episode's placement, and this is what I mean. Why is it that we got this episode so late into the series? Because this episode answers a lot of questions that I've had about Tigra, about his position in the royal family, about his relationship with Cloudus, about his relationship with Lionel. This episode, everything makes fucking sense now. Because before they just portrayed Tigra as being the jealous older brother who was passed over, when that's not the case. Tigra can never rule because he's not a lion, right? That's what we were told, but that didn't make any sense to me. Now it does make sense because he is not Cloudus' legitimate son. He is not Lionel's brother. He is an adoptive brother. He is not a biological brother. Therefore, he can never rule, ever. That makes complete and total fucking sense. That makes so much fucking sense. What I'm saying is, I'm pretty sure, yeah, you could go ahead and assume that, but they never clearly stated that before this episode. They just said that Tigra couldn't rule because he wasn't a lion. They didn't say shit about him not actually being related to Lionel. Because like I said, I don't know how the races work in this series. Okay? You know, could a lion produce a tiger? I don't know. Because we don't know this. We aren't given this information. Now we know. And now it makes sense. Also, another thing. Apparently, Tigra was very close to the queen. You know, that was her cub until Lionel arrived. And because she died in childbirth with Lionel, Lionel never knew his mother. Tigra did. And the idea that Tigra could hold some type of animosity towards Lionel because Lionel took his mother away from him, that makes so much fucking sense. What I'm saying is, why was this episode not introduced like in the first 10 episodes? Because it would have explained so much more about Tigra's character, and it would have established the foundation for Tigra's character development. But we get this late as fuck into the series. Also, keep in mind the circumstances in which this episode takes place. Why are Lionel and Tigra away from the rest of the team? Why are they in the middle of nowhere? And what are they looking for? Are they looking for the third stone? Are they looking for safe passage through the mountains? What are they looking for? We don't fucking know. Also, when you take in consideration that in last week's episode, they were told that the third stone was above that fucking, remember that mountain ridge? Well, no, not last week's episode, the episode before last. Episode 15, The Trials of Lionel Part 1. Didn't they have to go up that mountain ridge in order to get to the third stone? So are these mountains at the top of that? Because it doesn't seem like it. I mean, this setting seems like some desolate, snow-covered tundra. So where's the line of continuity with this episode? You see what I'm saying? This episode, the setting for this episode seems like filler. However, this episode gives a lot of exposition into Tigra's background. So I'm having a hard time placing this episode. I don't think this episode belongs here. I don't. I think because, keep in mind, did you guys also notice Lionel did not use the Spirit Stone in this week's episode? He didn't. All he used was the Sword of Omens. And he used Sight Beyond Sight. That's all he used. He didn't use the Spirit Stone in this week's episode. So like I said, this episode should have been earlier in the series. This episode should have been while they were searching for the Spirit Stone or while they were searching for the Book of Omens. Because there is nothing in this episode that suggests what they're looking for at all. And like I said, this episode was important for Tigra's character development. The fact that this episode is so late in the series doesn't make any sense. But like I said, it was a good episode. And my hat is off to Tab Murphy, who was the writer for this week's episode. I'm slowly but surely becoming a fan of his. In case you all don't know, Tab Murphy is also the writer for the animated adaptation of Batman Year One. And I believe he might have also done Superman, All-Star Superman. Let me check right quick. I want to make sure I got my facts right. Damn it. Okay, well, I can't get into it right now, but he did a good job with this episode. Like I said, the episode just felt out of place. This should have been earlier in the series. So, good job, ThunderCats. You actually put out a good episode. So, anywho, that's going to do it this week for my review. I want to thank you all for joining me again this week, and in the comments below, let me know what you all think, what your all thoughts are on this week's episode. What to keep an eye out for the rest of the weekend. Tomorrow will be my Game of Thrones episode review. Next week, my Legend of Korra episode reviews will pick up again next Saturday. So keep an eye out for that. But with that said, this has been Larry Williams, OAW Commander-in-Chief. I'm signing off, and until next time, peace.